Sierra Oscar Foxtrot, this is 614. Status check on podcast. I'll copy over.
614, this is Sierra Oscar Foxtrot. Roger, copy all. Podcast going live. Time now.
Hello and welcome to the podcast that is always digging for golden nuggets of entertainment for your enjoyment. And digging along next to me is Mr. Rick Douglas, retired Green Beret, and recently on the show Gold Rush, Season 12 from Discovery Channel.
Yep.
Sir, welcome to the program.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. And just like he will, like, follow, and subscribe. Because without your input and following, you'll never be up to date on all the cool awesomeness that we're doing here. Or also the Veteran Harbor stuff. So, like I said, like, follow, subscribe, do awesome things. We do.
Which I have already done. So.
Bam. See, he's one step ahead of you.
That's right.
One step. So, I'll know. So,
yep.
Sir, amazing career in the military, and now you're a TV star.
I don't think a TV star, huh? A member of the cast.
A member of the cast.
Yeah.
Well, why the Army?
So I grew up in northern California, not San Francisco. That's Central California. Okay, anything from Sacramento north is Northern California.
Now, I just want to know: is there like any indicators that you know you're in Northern California?
No, not really. I mean, when you're on the coast, it's basically the coast, and then you can be in Central California and still in the mountains.
Okay.
You know, so
like
the mountain range is running, but
so nothing like on the East Coast. You know, you're in the north,
no,
and you start hearing more
there's
horns
not that. Yeah,
honking, and people talking funny.
Yeah, it's not like that.
No.
Yeah. But in fact, we went as part of a mission back when we used to do the counter drug stuff.
Yeah.
We went back to California, and we were at Fort Ord, and we were going through the chow hall, and I'd only been in the Army for like 4 or 5 years, 4 years, whatever. But girl serving in the chow hall there said, "Where are you from?" I was like, "What do you mean, where am I from?" She goes, your accent." I said, "Accent? I was born and raised in California." She's like, "There's no way you were born and raised in California." I was like, okay. I mean, just that little bit of time of
being away,
being in North Carolina, Fort Bragg, and everything else.
There you go. We've countrified you.
Yeah. Well.
So what was it like? I mean, like I said, so you're up in north of Sacramento.
Yeah.
Hanging out in the mountains?
Yeah, so basically, if you walk out on our front porch and you look to the right, you've got the Sierras. You look to the left, you got the desert going into Nevada.
Okay.
And literally, Highway 395, on one side is the Sierras and the other side is the desert, and it's that way all the way into Reno, you know.
That's a crazy contrast right there.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I joined the Army, the main industries were logging, cattle, and then there was one minimum security prison out there. We had 2 huge sawmills, Sierra Pacific and Geldwin. And I actually was a forklift operator at the Geldwin plant. But now both sawmills are closed down. Obviously, with California and all their regulations, cattle's being a pain in the butt as far as trying to get through and make money with everything. And then now there's 2 minimum security prisons and 1 maximum security prison. So prison is the main industry up there now.
Wow.
So, but I just wanted, in those days when I was younger, you know, everybody raised a hog and a steer, and you just, the butcher come out and killed them and everything right there, threw them on the truck, took them back, hung them, cut and wrapped everything else, and you brought them in. And that was my goal, was to have my own shop for that. And I had ended up working at the sawmill as a forklift operator, and had a buddy of mine that had joined the Army with my cousin. They were both in the 82nd. He came home on leave, and we were playing quarters, and I was beating him, and he said, "Man, you can't beat me at nothing else." And we probably had too much to drink. And I said, "Well, you jump out of airplanes for a living, don't you?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, let's climb a tree and see who can jump out the highest there." So I started shimmying up this tree, and I got halfway up towards the branches, and he said, that's high enough. There ain't no way in hell I'm jumping from there. And I said, well, I'll beat you twice as bad then. So I got up into the branches. And he goes, dude, don't even do it. I'm not jumping. I would never jump from that. I said, so I win. He goes, sure, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So I was getting ready to shimmy down, and as I started to turn to come down, so I to this day I don't know who it was. They said, Douglas, I knew you'd chicken out, and I was like, oh, that's it. So I jumped off the branch, and you know, up there the trees are high, so I mean it could have been 15, 20 feet. I'm pretty liquored up, but hit the ground, and Bob come running over. He goes, man, that was a good PLF. And I said, oh, I don't know what PLF is, but okay. And I started to stand up. As I put weight down on my right foot, I had shattered my right foot. Went right back to the ground. So operating a forklift with a cast on, basically I was out of work for a few weeks on workman's comp until the foot healed. And it was right near the Memorial Day time frame, so there's a lot of war movies on and everything else. And I started getting pretty patriotic about it all. And I was like, you know what? I'm not real happy with the way things are going at the sawmill right now because of a certain boss or supervisor that I had. And I was just like, you know, it's the 82nd Airborne that caused me to be out of work, so I think it's going to be the 82nd Airborne that gives me work. And so I joined the Army.
Now, out of curiosity, you know, and we won't tell your coworkers, how much were you making back then?
Oh, yeah. So,
like hourly?
Yeah. Well, hourly wage, I can't remember, but this is 1981, and I was bringing home over $1,000 every 2 weeks, which, you know, in 1981, I had a $95 a month van payment. So my first car that I bought, not the family station wagon, because I'm the oldest of 6 boys, all right? My first car was a Ford Econoline van that we had bought from friends of my parents. He was a drywaller. Mm-hmm. So you could fit an entire pallet of drywall in the back of this van, and that's all it was 2 seats up front and then the space for that. And my payment was $95 a month. And then I had 2 roommates, sister of one of my best friends and one of her girlfriends, and so $1,000 every 2 weeks was, you know, a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
So when I joined the Army and got my first paycheck for $300 for the month, I was kind of like, there ain't no way in hell I'm going to survive off of this.
Yeah.
But
it's a big shock.
Eventually made it, yeah, you know.
So you get in the Army, right to the 80 Deuce?
Yeah, basic training, AIT, jump school, and 82nd Airborne. And I'll tell you, I was a problem child. I did not like the Army the way it was because of the hurry up and wait and the you don't need to know, just sit there and wait until I tell you what to do. And again, you know, the job that I had there in the sawmill, even though it was forklift operator, is pretty much the ground supervisor because the product that came out was the smaller stuff. It was a rip and cut plant where we cut the molds for windows back when we had, you know, wooden frames going around it, and the little pieces that go in your hollow core doors and everything. And I'd have to drive this little Heister fork truck up a ramp onto a deck and then drive into a box car, you know, stack them all up and put them out, and had to do the inventory and keep everybody up to date of what was coming out faster and slower and everything. So, you know, there's a lot of responsibility and everything there, and that was the nucleus of the job, or of the plant.
Yeah.
And then being the oldest of 6 boys, you know, kind of that leadership role and everything. And then I get in the Army and I'm like, dude, you're nothing. Nobody even cares what you think, say, or do, this and that. Shut up, you know, private, cherry, whatever else. And I mean, I got to the point where I'd be calling my dad crying, just saying, get me out of here. Call a congressman or something. This place sucks, you know.
Yeah.
Drinking a lot, getting in a lot of fights and trouble and everything. And then one day I had a platoon leader. He looked at me and he said, Private Douglas, he said, how many years did you enlist for? And I said, 4 years, sir. He goes, how many have you done? I said, I think a little over a year and a half maybe. And he goes, well, let me make this perfectly clear to you. You're either going to finish this next 2.5 years or whatever the term, you know, left is, in the first 504 or in Leavenworth. Those are your only 2 options. Do you understand me? I said, okay. I guess I better start figuring things out. And so after a few more incidents, got kicked off a camp picket by the post commander, and you know, a few more counselings by corporals and so on, I finally realized, hey man, if you can't beat them, join them. And literally did a turnaround and started focusing on my soldier skills and everything else, and boom, rank started coming up, you know.
Damn.
So
that's interesting. So, you know, in my time in the 82nd, obviously there's just a lot of like silliness. You know, you wake up at 5 because you have the 7:30, you know, morning call. You know, it's like, okay, that makes no sense. But yes, we did it, you know.
Right.
And then don't let your guys go home until after the platoon sergeant meeting, after the team, you know, the company had their meeting.
Right.
Because we're not responsible enough to tell our guys what comes out of this, just so that at 5 in the morning we can get up and have the same discussion again.
Right.
Loving it.
Yeah.
And I can understand, and I had some guys that, you know, the smart ones. It's always the smart ones.
Oh,
They're just like, you know, they don't like it.
Yeah.
They see the stupidity. They don't understand the stupidity. And it's a culture shock.
Yeah.
Definitely is.
Yeah, it was definitely culture shock for me. I mean, I went from, you know, being an individual that lived, you know, had my own apartment, my own car, my own job, making good money, this, that, everything else, and then all of a sudden it's like, you don't need to know anything except what we tell you, and then when we tell you something, it's usually to go do it.
Yes.
And just go do it. Don't ask questions. Just get it done, you know. So.
Wow.
But.
So how long you spend in the 82nd?
So I spent 4 years in the 82nd, and during my turnaround, I lucked out and had a squad leader come in that had been a couple of breaks in service. He had been trying to, every time he had enlisted in the military, he'd try to go to Vietnam, and he ended up not going. They'd send him someplace else. So he'd, you know, do his stint, ETS, come home for a little bit, and then re-enlist and go re-enlist for another job and try to go to Vietnam. Anyhow, so that being said, he's a staff sergeant, but he's been around a while and knows a whole lot.
Yeah.
And he planned my career for me. Part of the deal was he had a family situation where he ended up going and working at what we called the close combat course. The mount stuff had started coming out as the new mission and everything. And so he was an instructor out there, and so he'd met a bunch of SF guys out there too. That bottom line was we all ended up hunting and fishing together and everything else. But by his contacts through them, he knew how to plan my career and everything. And this was the days when you actually did had carbon copy forms for a 4187 to go to Ranger School and all this and that. So for the years of 1984 and 85, I literally did PLDC, BNOC, jump school. I ended up going to SEER instructor school, SEER level B course, and Ranger school, and then PCS to be did I say drill sergeant school also? But ended up PCS to be a drill sergeant. But so what happened was Chip, my squad leader, ended up sending in my 4187 for Ranger school, and I got my whole physical and everything done. And this was the days when you couldn't just say, hey, run down and see the battalion PA and get a physical done, okay? So he's sending roses to the lady at DA to get me a Ranger slot, because there was no such thing as pre-Ranger and everything, in 1984. It was just, typically you were either a cadet or some sort of officer going through training, or coming out of Ranger battalion to go to Ranger school. But so got all the paperwork done, submitted it and everything, and then a slot to go to this SEER level B came up for the battalion. And what level B was the unit SEER representative or instructor. And so it was SEER instructor course. And I was the only guy in the battalion that had a current physical. So they're like, hey, do you want to go? I'm like, well, yeah, hell yeah, I want to go, As a private in the E4, I'd already done Robin Sage support 2 different times. So anything that had to do with special forces, I wanted to go to. So I get out to Camp McCall, and this is when there's still, tar paper shacks out there and everything else, $1 million latrine that didn't work, and 1 hot shower that had, a hot water tank and everything. But anyhow, there's a guy out there named Nick Rowe, and couple other great guys that were, like legends, Gary O'Neill and Billy Crane, and just, just these guys. One Eye Nail was out there. I mean, and, I'm this little buck sergeant out there going, holy smokes, what did I get into?
Yeah.
So we're, and I always knew someday I would end up going to Special Forces, okay? But we get out there and we're in like day one of the training, and we did classroom stuff. We put on a break, and the guy that was the class leader, the senior guy, was an 82nd guy also. And so they said, hey, class leader, at this time we want everybody over at the hand-to-hand pit. So everybody, this is days when everybody smoked and everything. Everybody's sitting around smoking. He looks at his watch and a few minutes prior, so he's like, all right, everybody form up. And he gets everybody in formation, calls them to attention, right face, column left, march, and he starts marching. And I believe it was Billy Crane comes running out there, and he's like, what in the hell are you doing? And he starts, and class leader halts everybody, and we're still standing there, and he's chewing his ass. He says, let me tell you something. This is not the 82nd Airborne. This is not. When you're on Camp McCall, you don't march any damn place, all right? When I tell you I want you over there at 10 o'clock, that means at 10 o'clock, you start moseying over there and get everybody. Don't ever let me see another formation out here again, okay? And I was like, I'm definitely going to this Special Forces thing, that's for sure.
That's always the allure,
Yeah.
They drive up, hands in the pockets, hat maybe if they want.
Yeah. So, but ended up going through that training there, and then while I was out there is when my Ranger class date came up, and so I'm going to Ranger school 12 days after I get out of SEER school, which now the current SEER school was just a scaled down model, the compound and everything.
Yeah.
So we weren't getting slapped around and everything else, but our final was a 10-day E&E.
Yep.
5 as a team, and then 5 as an individual when you got your 1 click by 1 click square, and you got to set up your snares and catch all your food and everything else. So just to keep it, make it simple, going to Ranger school 12 days after SEER school, and then spending the night prior on Sicily Drop Zone because we were out scouting the area for deer hunting places. And my buddy's son, who's now a retired SF guy out of 5th Group, Jeff, gets my blazer stuck in a huge puddle out there. And so literally we hitchhiked back to base.
Yeah.
Chip gives me the keys to his truck, says, go to Ranger school, I'll get your truck out of there. And so I drive his truck down to Fort Benning. I'm running late, get in there, and I was prepared, man. I think Ranger school was 12 weeks long back then, and I had a uniform for every week. I had toy soldiers and crushed up chalk and yarn. And I mean, I was going to do the terrain models from hell and this and that. And everybody's like, holy smokes, you're squared away in this. And we got down for the PT test.
Yeah.
And I've never been an upper body strength guy, so we had to tear all our unit patches off of uniforms. And so just said your name and what base you're from. And so I get down, they start pushing, they say, and this is like, hey, no breaks. If you take a break, you're done.
Yeah.
So I start pushing, and the RI says, oh, Fort Bragg, you one of them green beanies, aren't you? And I was like, no, Ranger, I'm not. I'm from the 82nd Airborne. He's like, I don't believe you. And I said, well, you can see where my patch was. And he, okay, starts counting. So I end up getting my 33.
Yeah.
And I'm the closest guy to the pull-up bars. And I'm like, God, Now I might have done, 50 push-ups, which was, for me at that time, was amazing.
Yeah.
The only way I made it was pure fear. But so I get on the pull-ups and hang and do my first pull-up, come down, and I know if I lock my arms, I'm probably not going to do it. So I kind of went there and went back up, did my next 5 pull-ups. And RI says, Ranger, I'm not counting those last 5 pull-ups. And he goes, and you know why. And I did know why. And I was like, crap. So now I hang, I knock out 4 more. And
that's impressive.
Yeah, that 5th one, I mean, like I said, that 5th one, it just didn't come. And and again, I showed up, I had my stuff squared away. So as we're waiting to do the 2-mile run, one of the RIs comes over and says, hey, look, says, if you do really good on the run, they might keep you. He goes, we know you're squared away. We know you're going to do good. I mean, I'd already presented that, and so I'm like, all right. And this is when we still ran PT tests in boots, so I'm running PT test in jungle boots, and I come in under 11 minutes, you know, and I was a big time runner in my younger days, triathlons, all that stuff. And the same RI comes up and says, "Hey man, I'm sorry." He goes, "I mean, I told you that, but this is one of the biggest classes we've ever had since the Vietnam era, and they're just not going to let you stay because we've got all these cadets and everything else." And I was like, "Hey man, it is what it is." You know, I mean, like you said, truthfully honest guy. And I said, "That's, you know, I don't expect anybody or any school to compromise, you know, the standards for me." You know, so never went back to Ranger School, but did go to drill sergeant school. Then 2 years at Fort Jackson from 86 to 88, and then Q course straight from there. And Chip had all that planned, you know.
Man.
So
I tell you what. So, you know, it was always if you want to get promoted, go to Jump Master School.
yeah,
So I did. Like, was it 2012? But the only way I could go was back into the 82nd,
yeah,
and which they had one slot for all of SOF.
yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say there was favoritism. I might have known the guy who was dealing out the slots because
Right.
he was on my team at one point in time.
Right.
But I didn't think I was going to make it.
Yeah.
I went in there and, you know, how they do the first three, you know, the JMPI.
Right.
I didn't get past the first JMPI guy, like, for the first two.
Right.
And then we broke for lunch, and I'm calling the team sergeant, like, "Hey, you know when the next one is?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just like in that movie Old School, you know, where Will Ferrell's like, "I'll answer this as the political question."
Yeah.
And he's just like, da 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 da.
Yeah.
That's what it's something consumed me, and I just like
Yeah.
felt bad for that guy's ass on the very last one where he's like, "Running out of time, airborne." I'm like, "Die."
Yeah. No, same thing. I mean, you know, being in the 82nd prior to going, you know, they prepare you for Jump Master School.
Oh yeah.
And you go through pre-Jump Master School, and you know, this is I don't know if they still do it now, but we had to memorize pre-jump back then.
Yep, still
And
do.
Okay, so you know, we had to go through all of that, and I was ready to go. I did all my studying, had all my nomenclature and everything. Then the JMPI comes up, and they call my roster number out there, and I go running out there, and I'm just like, I am so freaked out that all I can remember seeing is a stopwatch in my face saying, "Do you have any questions?" I said, "No." He said, "Go." And I turned around, and I was just flailing everywhere. I had no idea where I was going, what I was doing. I mean, that JMPI was just screwed up from hell. So, you know, go to retest, and I'm like, what was I couldn't understand why I screwed it up because I knew I was ready and everything.
Yeah.
So I go to retest, and now I know I'm good to go. You know, I'm like confident. Running through it all, everything else, and till the last jumper turned. And when he turns, I go like this, and man, I rip the static line out. And the static line just goes flying, and I yell, "Excess static line." And I mean, I run like 10 feet over here tracing this static line, and then throw it over his shoulder and throw it back in and turn and boom, you know, slap the guy. And I think he says, "You had 15 seconds to go." I said, "Yes, Jump Master." And he goes, "You tore my static line out of my parachute." I said, "I called X. You don't tell me what you did." And I said, "Yes, Jump Master." And he says, "You're a go." I was like, whew.
I had probably one of the most confusing pre-jumps because you had to do it all by memory.
Yeah.
So he's like, "All right, are you ready, Jump Master?" I'm like, "Yes." And he goes, "Go." And I'm like, "All right." And the first line I get out, and then I stop. And I'm like, "Oh, what happens next?"
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like a good, 30 seconds, 45. And I'm trying to, 3 times. And I'm like, ah. And then finally I'm like, oh yeah. So I start going da 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 da, and I get to the next paragraph da 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 da, and I'm like, oh man, I forgot this thing back at the first paragraph. So I'm like, hey, back here, and I go da 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 da, and then I go back to where I was. And I did that like 3 times. He's like, that was almost very hard to follow.
Yeah, but you hit it all.
But I scored like a 90 something. But I was like, trust me too.
Yeah, no, I'm
take it as it comes.
I'm pretty lucky about that as far as being able to do the memorization. I memorize a certain section and then a little more. But doing that for Jump Master School helped me when I went to Drill Sergeant School because everything there is memorization.
Yeah.
And it's all the same presentation, with the exception of which way you're turning or facing or stepping or anything else. And, to this day, I still wolf and rap. I mean, next movement, all name, explain, have, demonstrated, conduct, practical on is face to the right from a halt. This movement utilized to face an element or elements 90 degrees to the right from a halt in a uniform manner. Command for this movement is right face. Right being the preparatory command, face being the command of execution. When said in its entirety, sounds as follows. Right face.
You're bringing me back to a place I didn't want to go.
You didn't want to be there.
No, I don't want to be there anymore.
I always
you
thought,
scared me.
I always thought I was like the fun, nice drill sergeant.
Yeah.
And I ran into privates of mine later on, and they were like, dude, are you kidding me, man? It's like, everybody's scared to death of you, you know? It's like, what? In fact, I had females one time, and my senior squad leader was actually older than me. So I was on the drill sergeant at 23 years old. Mm-hmm. Signed in at 23, ended up at 24. But she was older than me, and the platoon had been screwing up or whatever, and I start yelling at him in the barracks, and I'm like, I'll have a freaking Vietnam flashback on your ass and kill every fucking one of you, you know? And so, like, 2 days later, she comes, he's drill sergeant. I said, what's that? She goes, I got to talk to you. I said, what's going on? She says, girls aren't sleeping. I said, what do you mean they're not sleeping? She said, they think you're going to come in and kill them. I was like, what?
Oh.
She goes, yeah, when you said you were going to have a Vietnam flashback, she goes, now you're younger than me. And she goes, I know that even the guys my age didn't go to Vietnam. She goes, I keep trying to tell them that you were just saying that to be mean. And I said, yeah. She's like, you're going to have to explain that to them. I was like, oh my God, you know, so.
That had to have been challenging. So you had you were an instructor, drill instructor with females and males as a mixed unit?
No. So if you had females, you had all females. If you had males, you had all males. So,
okay.
Yeah. And we'll leave it at that because I got in a lot of trouble over that.
Don't envy you for that one.
Yeah.
I'm glad I was never a drill sergeant,
well,
really.
I got Field Grade Article 15 to show that it.
Yeah, that's. And a lot of, I don't know. Yeah, so moving on, yeah.
Yeah.
So you went SF, and what, night and day, obviously, of the culture between 80 Deuce and SF.
Right.
But you spent pretty much, since, when you went through, they didn't have selection, right?
No. In fact, I would say it was the test selection was going on, and I was in phase 2 for 18 Charlie. We were at Smoke Bomb Hill, and these guys came out of McCall, and they were so smoked. They were in the barracks, 2 buildings down from the mess hall, and their feet hurt so bad that they laid in bunks in the barracks and ate MREs. I think we still had MREs then. It wasn't C-right. Yeah, MREs. Yeah. Instead of going to the chow hall, because their bodies were so worn out. They didn't even want to climb out of a bunk and walk 2 buildings down to a chow hall. I was like, I don't know if it would have been worth it to me. Like, that was some crazy. I mean, now we didn't see everything they were doing, but we heard a lot of the rumors and stuff. Like, hey, one guy died and everything else, and it's like, holy crap, man, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Now I do remember. During phase 1, we were out on the obstacle course, and what was his name? He was colonel then. He ended up being a general in Haiti with us. Dang, I can't remember his name, but he was big time. He was the one that started the selection stuff.
Okay.
And he was big time into the British SAS and everything. And so I'm coming up to the obstacle, and he's standing there with 2 British SAS officers, and they're discussing the obstacle course and how they do it. And so the one obstacle that I was coming up to is the rope climb, and then you transition to the rope that's coming at an angle.
Yeah.
And so there's a guy in front of me, so I got to stand there and wait, and I'm listening to him, and the Brit says, this is a good one, but they need to have packs, and they should go over the post and transition. And I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm doing this. Packs.
35 pounds on your back.
Yeah, and up this rope, and then over the post, and then onto I'm like, and I considered myself an obstacle course kind of guy back then, and I was like, I don't know if I'd want to do that. It's, again, one of those, I don't know if it's worth it,
You know what got me on the obstacle course?
What's that?
Stupid little island hop thing. with the you know, you jumping from
posts?
one thing
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
I mean, they're 2 inches off the ground.
Yeah.
For whatever reason,
Yeah.
like 5 times through.
Really?
I'm just like, you know what? It's just not working for me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I did love the obstacle course. I always thought that was
Yeah.
fun. So getting into the we're being invaded by aliens.
Sounds like it, huh? Spaceships landing out there.
Spaceships landing. They want, you know why? Because they liked and subscribed to my podcast.
That's right.
That's why they're out there. They're ready to get on here.
Hey, you got that in twice now.
Damn right. Shameless promotion. So speaking of shameless promotions, let's talk about Veteran Harbor. This is really the reason why we do the podcast, is just to let the world know about Veteran Harbor. It's a nonprofit charity organization designed to support veterans in need. Current objectives right now is the project, the Robert Lee Project. What we're doing there is we have purchased a piece of property from a gentleman by the name of Robert Lee. He has gone through a lot of troubles in his life. His wife and kids died in a car accident. His mother died of cancer, and he's just shut himself away, you know, in the bottle for many years, 25 years, I believe, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Was in the Army, got out. So now he's trying to get his act together and his life back in order. And that's what we're stepping in and we're trying to help. And in doing so, he's going to help us help him. We're going to take his property. He's got a house that is like barely standing. You can see right through it, literally. And we're going to put it back into livable condition. And he's going to be there forever, for as long as he wants, as the custodian. And we're going to use this place as the first Veteran Harbor house in support of the Veterans Treatment Court of Harnett County, as they will run programs of other veterans who have gone wayward, made horrible mistakes, and are now trying to get their lives back on the right course. So that is our current big push. And if you want to learn more, you got the web link right there, www.veteranharbor.com. And if you like whacking little white balls, we're doing a golf tournament June 4th over at the Carolina Lakes Golf Country Club place. That's the unofficial term. I don't. Yeah.
Carolina Lakes.
Carolina Lakes.
It's
They play golf there.
yeah.
Just a couple lakes. But yeah, so June 4th, you can once again get back on the website, sign up and register. Looking for sponsorships. If you're just looking to, you know, donate to the cause, there's also on the website a donate button. You can smash that guy and throw out some cash to Mr. Robert Lee indirectly. Also, and over here you should see. Well, we'll go. Yeah, how about right here? We'll go right here because I don't want it blocking your view.
Right.
You got to see the camera too. But yeah, right here you can see there's the. No, I'm sorry. No, here, over there. Yeah, over there. That's where we're gonna put it. Ty, you watching this? Yes, over there. You can see the little flyer for the golf thing, right there, and it's been there this whole time. You might not have noticed because we're awesome, but yeah, I just want to bring your attention to that. So with that, I've just recently become a member of the Special Forces Association.
Yes.
Just recently.
I saw your application go in.
Yes, and I haven't paid yet though.
Well,
I don't know if it's official.
it'll come. Yeah. So it's a different, a newer process now where the chapter presidents are validating everything to take off a lot of the work on national.
Okay.
So you sent your stuff to Chris North, and he'll do the validation of everything, get it sent up to national. They'll look at it, say, yeah, we know this guy is actually an SF guy, and approve it and everything. It'll come back to Chris, and then he'll say, hey, send me a check, and then you'll start getting all the emails for 101/91.
There we go. Bam. That's why I did this. I want the emails.
Yes.
I want to know what's going on in the SF
Updates.
Association.
The updates. Well, and you know what? That's one of the things about being here with you is you're the veteran harbor, and you know, I was a very active member of the SF Association when I was the field service rep for Blackbird Technologies at Third Group. I was the secretary and eventually the president of Chapter 100, which is the Third Group affiliated chapter. And fortunately for me, I had the opportunity to work with the GBF and the Patriot Foundation, and man, Beaver McCann's going to kill me because I can't remember the name. It'll come to me. Special Forces Charitable Trust.
Bam.
There we go. Yeah. But, you know, I worked with all these guys, and the way it worked for me back then was because I was a contractor there at the unit. I was there all the time, but I was also the chapter president. Well, a lot of people don't realize that active duty units cannot go to a nonprofit and ask for help. But because I worked there, I'd be sitting in meetings and hear, hey, this guy or somebody knew me off the side say, hey, let me know, hey, this guy's parents are going through a hard time, or mom's going through surgery, he needs to get back to wherever, or, you know, something's going on. And so as the chapter president, I knew these different foundations and their charters and who did what for who. And so we would be the spearhead, like initially, hey, we'll give so much money to get this thing going, and then I would call one of these other organizations and say, hey, will you contact this guy or this point of contact or whatever else, so that, and offer up to help them get this taken care of. And so it was really a huge fulfilling thing to help the guys, because you know, even to this day I still consider Third Group guys my kids. You know, I signed into Third Group as Staff Sergeant Douglas out of 5th Group in El Paso on the day that they were standing on the parade field doing the activation ceremony. So Sergeant First Class Crockett was the NCOIC of the S1, and he was the only guy in group headquarters at the time, because everybody's on the parade field, and I signed in on that day. And you know, so I just, to me, Third Group guys are my kids, you know. And being able to do that as the chapter president and help guys out, and you know, do all the functions and support the unit functions that were going on and everything, it was just one of the best times of life, you know.
So you obviously probably did quite a few deployments over your career.
Oh yeah.
What are some of the most memorable?
Well, they all have great memories because my reputation, you know, I like to go out and party and have a good time. But definitely loved the Haiti days.
Haiti, huh?
Oh yeah. Haiti was some of the best times in life, you know. I lucked out. I was in Haiti a year before the Haitian vacation started, and we were in there. This is when the Haitian refugees were, you know, everything was going on. And so I guess we were trying to go into country and try to set up some sort of military training / humanitarian stuff to keep the Haitians from trying to illegally migrate into the United States.
Yeah.
And anyhow, during that time frame, made a lot of connections, a lot of friends and everything, and had been around the island, you know, itself. And so especially Camp d'Application, which is like their West Point. So a year later, when we're getting ready to go in, I'm actually in O&I, and they're getting ready to do the final exercise for O&I, which is the ASOP portion. And they're like, hey, we're pulling you out. It's like, you've already been to all these locations, you've already taken pictures of a lot of things, you already know what's going, you're coming out and going in on this planning thing. So I ended up going back and finishing that portion of O&I, but I got pulled out of O&I to go back into Haiti, and did several more rotations in there, and just loved it, man.
And O&I, of course, now it's the new Special Forces Intelligence Sergeant's Course, I think.
Yeah.
What was O&I stands for?
Operations and Intelligence Course.
Bam.
Yeah.
I know that military life, full of acronyms.
Oh yeah, yeah. But yeah, so Haiti was probably the best. You know, all of them. I mean, Green Berets, man, you go to a shithole and turn it into a kingdom. You know, I mean.
So that was actually when third group even that, because they had for a short period of time, third group had the Caribbean.
Yes, Second Battalion had the Caribbean.
Well, that must have been nice.
Yeah, yeah. I
Of
mean,
course, you went to Haiti.
when you have to go to St. Croix to do some training, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
Man.
pretty terrible.
And then they took it away.
Yeah,
They found Green Berets were having too much fun.
yeah. Well, and the thing was, you know, in those initial years, we were losing our separate rations to go TDY. You know, we had to buy MREs to take with us.
Wow.
And hey, typical SF fashion, still found a way to have a good time. You
There
know?
you go.
So
When did you retire?
I retired in 2006.
2006.
Yeah, I came back from my last deployment, active duty deployment to Afghanistan 4 months later. I had cleared everything, retired, signed out of the Army on July 6th, and July 8th I was flying back to Afghanistan as a contractor. Pretty much stayed in and out of Afghanistan until 2008 when I came back home and started at third group with Blackbird.
Yes. And we might not have really known each other, but I think
Yeah.
we were at the Blackbird thing together because I was the student, you were watching training.
Yeah,
I don't-
I was probably watching.
Yes, because somebody else was instructing, but
Yeah, they had training teams that came around and did all the new equipment training and stuff.
yes,
But
a lot of fun, that thing.
yeah,
We can't talk about it, sorry.
but yeah,
It was just training. It was fun. Just take our word for it. It was fun. A lot of fun. But what else did we do? Let's see here. So you got out, did the Blackbird stuff,
yeah.
and then, man, so that was so like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, so I did that up until 2015. Then basically there's changes in the contract as far as the conventional. So Blackbird had both conventional and soft. They lost the conventional side. Another buddy of mine that actually was the one that recommended me for the third group position, because I was doing overseas, Afghanistan and Iraq with them.
Yeah.
He was up at ForceCom, and so they said, hey, look, you know, nothing personal, but we need to keep him because he's got more time and this and that. And so they laid me off to give him my position, which,
Gotcha.
hey, you know, that's contracting. That's business.
Oh, yeah.
I understood it, you know. So from 2015 to 2018, I chased contracts left and right, ASOT stuff here and there and everything, you know. And then also during that process, I mean, I was living large. I was, you know, we were making pretty good money then. I had a house that I'd lived in since, I mean, I was the original owner since 1992. And, you know, again, the chapter president and just everything was going good. And then all of a sudden, hey, we're laying you off. Well, they laid me off 2 days after I bought my 13-acre farm out in Hoke County. And the 13 acres, I had already previously owned 7 of it, but the other 6 came with a mobile home.
Okay.
So I'm like, well, this kind of sucks. I mean, I still had quite a bit of money saved up and everything else, but I was like, you know, I just paid to have the 7 acres cleared and started to be like I was going to do hay on it. And the mortgage on the property itself was only $500 a month, and one of my buddies was going out there to be the sergeant major, and so he was renting the place so he could sell his house and retire out of there. So it really wasn't hurting that bad.
Yeah.
And then the place that I was boarding my horses says, hey, we're going out of business. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we're taking over a cattle ranch up in Mount Ula, and we're going to be out of here in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm like, okay, so I just bought this farm, don't have a job. Now I got to move my horses out to this farm, and there's no fences or anything on it, okay? So I'm like, huh. So everything comes around, I cash in my 401k to get the money to fence it in, and I spend about a month and a half pounding posts and putting in fences and dividing it up into pastures so it doesn't get all tore up, and then start chasing contracts. And I was doing pretty good as far as working with like MARSOC and this and that.
Yeah.
But slowly but surely, contracts were being won by other companies, and the money was going down. And then, the frequency was being less and less as far as running different things. And then I was working out at NTC, and we knew over July there was going to be 30 days off because of 4th of July and everything, and I had that all planned out and everything. And then another snafu occurred where I was the area developer out there, and even though we had won the contract back, there were still 2 iterations of training that were laid on for left seat, right seat for if somebody else had won. And the contracting officers had not budgeted for my position for that left seat, right seat, because they figured who needs to be trained on that? You have to go out and find people anyway. You don't need training on that if you know.
Yeah.
So the boss comes up and says, "Hey man, I don't have any work for you for the next 90 something days." I'm like, "Whoa, wait a second." Now, as things were as things were slowly going bad to worse, I'm losing $10,000 a year. I'm like going into debt on credit cards, $10,000 a year. So driving back up to Vegas, and I got a surveillance contract in Washington State. And so I'm like calling everybody I know, trying to find something, nothing. So I get online, I see a job opportunity to go back to Afghanistan. So I call my girlfriend, I said, "Look, I'm gonna have to go back overseas." She says, "Yeah, it makes sense." I said, "I'm gonna have to do it for at least 3 years." She's like, "Yeah, I got it. We can handle everything." I said, "All right." So put in for this job, and fortunately for me, it was a future ops planner.
Okay.
And fortunately for me, the guys that were running the shop and everything were third group guys. And so when the resume come in, they're like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." So get done with that contract and head over to Afghanistan. And the first year was getting caught up. So no, I didn't take vacations or anything else. And then, it was, hey, the second year we're going to get things caught up. We'll save some money, and then I'll take a vacation, and we'll meet in Europe or something like that, and everything else. Well, then COVID hits, and it's like, all right, nobody's taking a vacation anywhere. And so what ended up turning out was 3 straight years, no vacations, no days off. Now, there was a portion in the contract where they said I had a day off, but because of my job and the things I had to do, I really couldn't take the day off.
Yeah.
So I just didn't get paid.
Yeah.
They said I had days off, but I was still in the shop not getting paid, But 3 straight years. I come back from there, and I'm home 11 days. And again, Veteran Harbor, all this other stuff. This is kind of why I like this stuff. One of my buddies is going through some hard times, and we're tracking on Facebook how he's doing and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I log in on Facebook go to the page where his girlfriend's posting how he's doing and stuff, and I see an ad from Fred Lewis on Gold Rush. Now, while I was in Afghanistan, I had only seen 1 episode of Gold Rush, and it just happened to be the episode where he was refinancing or getting more finance support and everything. Yeah. So I saw this guy. I'm like, "Who's this guy, SF guy?" And I researched and Googled it. So when I saw his ad, I knew he was legit. And when I researched him, I was like, this guy's just crazy enough to make stuff like this happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Fred speaks 3 Asian languages fluently. All right. Prior to coming to SF, he was radio interceptor, translating stuff. Okay. I'm like, the only other guy I know that can do that is actually certified genius through all the testing and stuff. So I'm like, this guy's just crazy enough that I think he could do it, And so he's got an ad on the SF page saying, "Hey man, I'm looking for somebody that can operate heavy equipment and everything." And I said, "Well, my dad did underground construction all his life, so pretty much we grew up on backhoes and dump trucks and things like that." And I was like, excavator can't be that much different than the backhoe and everything. But anyhow, so I contact him, and I've only been home 11 days, and I look at my girlfriend. I said, "What do you think about this?" She says, "Listen, she saw what I went through chasing those contracts. She saw what I went through spending 3 years there. She goes, you deserve to do something that's just for you. If you want to do it, go do it. Just, if it doesn't work out, don't come back and say, hey, we shouldn't have let you go or whatever else." I'm like, "Roger, got it." So contacted Fred, and everything worked out. And before the end of June, I'm on my way to Canada to be on Gold Rush.
Yeah, I got to see your when you posted on the Facebooks. I saw your exploits as you went up there and did your thing.
Yeah, so I'm not very good at. So I obviously track people and message through Facebook and everything, but I mean I couldn't even spell Instagram before that, and so I would have to like take pictures, because my girlfriend had to start my Instagram account. And then I'd have to take pictures and email them to her, and then tell her, "Hey, this is what's going on."
So she can do.
So she could post it all.
Okay, there you go.
Because it'd go to Instagram and then automatically populate to the Facebook page.
Yeah.
But so
That's pretty cool.
So my stuff's more limited than everybody else's.
Well, I have a factoid because I like doing these factoids.
Right.
It's kind of what I do,
Right.
All right. Picture this: the Earth is 200,000 years old.
Right.
No gold on the Earth. If there was, it was like very minute, bombarded by meteorites with gold.
Right.
So, and then it just sat there for the last,
So wait, you're saying meteorite, solid gold meteorite?
Yeah.
And
Like a damn disco ball coming down, bombarding the Earth. This is where the gold came from. They're alien golds.
So I had no idea about that.
Yeah, so you're digging up alien gold.
Yeah.
From that sat there for 3,800,000 years ago.
Right.
I mean, that's
how,
the perspective.
I would have never known that. Fred might have known that. Okay. I would never have known that. I had to slowly learn gold mining as we went through everything there. That's part of the thing too. Was a lot of people were expecting to see yelling, swearing, and ass chewing. First Sergeant, Team Sergeant Douglas, and no, it was more of, man, I got no idea what the hell I'm doing here. It's like first it's 24-hour sunlight, and again. So when I said, hey, I can operate heavy equipment, I can dig a hole. Okay.
Yeah.
You see guys on excavators on these huge piles of dirt, whatever, and you think, how in the hell did they get there? And I'm like, I can tell you how now. So my dad told me, hey, when you get up there, you're going to be doing a lot more pulling than you will be digging. I said, what do you mean? He goes, oh, you'll find out. So what happens is the rock trucks come and dump the pay, and then you don't reach up and stack it this high. You're sitting on the top, and you basically pull it to you, and then pull back, and then pull up another one, and you build this mound. And so when I first got there, Buzz was like, hey, I need you to go up. And I was like, dude, I can't do that. I'm going to die if I try to do that. But by the end of the season, it was, you sit there and you feed the plant, and obviously the pay goes down, so you're pulling down, and then we'd go to do shift change or before shift change, but you got to build it back up for the next shift. And I got to the point where, okay, now I've got all this pay, and so you're sitting up here and you can't reach the pay, so you got to drive down, and then I'd get to the point where I'd build this pay pile back up and then drive off the pay pile back on. And I was like, and I was proud. Now, any guy that operates an excavator is like, yeah, it's not a big deal. But I went from there ain't no way in hell I'm doing that to now I can get that done, or I could get up on top of a pile and then put the bucket down and pivot my track sideways so that I can feed the truck. And it was one of those adventures for all of us that we all learned a lot about ourselves and learned a lot about operating equipment and operating rock trucks. And the only thing I really didn't get to do that I thought was because everything was so rapid paced, so I wanted to get up there and start doing a lot more welding and mechanical work. And JB is a hell of a mechanic. JB can fix anything, and there's just not enough time for a learning curve as far as like, hey, we're going to pull you off the rock truck so you can go over and help JB do this and learn. It's like, no, we still got to keep doing with something else.
Got to make money.
Right. So I didn't get to do a lot of the welding that I wanted to do, or a lot of the mechanical work that I'd hoped to get the experience on and stuff. But it's certainly a great adventure. Probably the worst deployment of my freaking life. I mean,
Yeah, and because you went to a whole nother country.
yeah, literally.
Literally.
Just across the street, but it's still another country.
Yeah.
But we were in Yukon, and the highway, the highways up there are actually gravel roads. They don't pave them because of the weather. So, a lot of people don't, I mean, they probably know this, but they don't get it. But when water freezes, the volume expands 10 times.
Yeah.
So I don't think paved roads are going to survive that very well. And so the Canadians build these awesome gravel highways up there. And the highway that was next to us was called Top of the World, and literally it's top of the world. And then we just pull off of it and follow a road down into California Creek and start mining.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
And just remember, it's out there on Discovery Channel. You watch them. Episode 8, I think, right?
Episode 8 is the first one that I show up on.
There you go. So just fast forward through all those other episodes,
Well,
because that's where he's at, episode 8. Because that's when the fun really happens. So, well, I definitely appreciate you coming here today.
I enjoyed it. Hope to come back.
Definitely, always welcome.
Yeah.
On Tuesdays and Thursdays, visitation rights. Okay.
Well, there's a lot of people that are watching now going, so I don't think I cussed that much, and I didn't tell a lot of the bad stories that are out there. So
He's on his best behavior.
yeah, I'm trying hard.
I mean, he's got to report back to his parole officer.
Yeah.
So, well, I think, though, that's about it for Veteran Harbor and the Sierra Oscar Foxtrot podcast. I do thank you for watching all of this, because I'll know I watch everything. That's what they taught us in school, to be special forces and to know and watch everything that everybody does all the time.
Yep.
We're always watching. So, that's all we got for today. Like, follow, and subscribe, and you'll see our happy, shiny, smiley faces telling you awesomeness. April 1st. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Please like and follow so you can stay in the know for the next one.